What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my Buffalo Bills off-season checklist, and hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, hit that like button, it would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel and want to see more off-season NFL coverage, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And of course, if you're a Bills fan or just a fan of the NFL, tell me what you think the Buffalo Bills can do this off-season to improve their roster. What moves can they make in free agency, via trade, or in the NFL draft? Love to have your thoughts down in the comments section. You can go back and check out some of the other videos, kind of give you a rundown of how these normally operate. This will be the last time I mention this in video, but free agencies tiered up what I think you should be highest priority downward, and then in the draft, day 1, day 2, day 3, I did add that into the format. Let's jump right into it. Obviously, this is one of the best teams in the AFC, and I've seen arguments that had they been able to make it to the Super Bowl, they would have been able to take down the Rams, and maybe the Bills were the best team in the NFL this year, in a year where there was a ton of parity. Didn't feel like there was a number one team in the NFL. I've seen the argument being made that maybe Buffalo was it, just couldn't get it done in the postseason. Obviously won the AFC East, 8 draft picks, they have 2 7s. Everything else is the rest of their dispersed NFL draft assets. And the projected cap, not in a great spot. Obviously this can change a whole lot. Pretty much any contract that is restructurable, especially in a team like Buffalo where you're trying to make a little bit of tweaks here and there, any restructurable contract will be restructured pretty much. I think some of the deals they could make once we get to free agency, cutting AJ Klein and John Feliciano, maybe it's Cody Ford if you like Feliciano over Ford at one of those guard spots. It looks like Darrell Williams might kick inside to play guard full time, and you keep Spencer Brown at right tackle. If you do that, then Feliciano or Ford is expendable, but if you cut Klein and Feliciano, it saves you about $8.5 million. That is a pretty solid spot, a place to start at least. Get you back into the positive when it comes to cap space, and then restructure a couple of contracts. And like I said, in my final notes, jumping ahead a little bit, but there's about those little tweaks that you can make at this point. Obviously, if you cut Feliciano, you're going to need a left guard, so that's your next priority. And maybe it's just trusting Cody Ford to step into that spot and hopefully getting better play out of him, or maybe it's adding a veteran for the minimum or somewhere thereabouts. Also, I think you can add some IDL and cornerback depth. Harrison Phillips played okay. I think you can let Vernon Butler walk this free agency. His run defense grade per Pro Football Focus isn't all that great. And, guy who is actually making a decent chunk of money. Again, we're talking about not huge contracts, but every little bit counts for where the Bills are right now. So maybe we're just letting Harrison Phillips step into that full-time nose tackle spot. We'll also talk about that a little bit later on. And, of course, adding cornerback depth. I mean, like if they can have a Bengals type of secondary, but it's headlined by Tre'Davious White, I think that would put this team in a really solid situation, right? Levi Wallace is a free agent. Not entirely sure they bring him back. If they do, they could probably get him for cheap. If they bring him back and then another league average player or two in that secondary, it'll be, headlined by a star and then a ton of just NFL starter caliber guys. I think that's a really solid recipe for the Bills, especially considering their path to playoffs would have to go through Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Justin Herbert and Chargers, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, etc., etc. Then we get to the draft. I think day 1 is just it's a BPA / need-based approach. But that said, this is one with those position groups. Nose tackle, you could get some good value there. Maybe it's Devonta Wyatt, since it's primarily a 4-3 front. I think he would fit fine in that 3-5 tech type of role, lining up inside or outside of the guard, depending on how the shift and you want to align it. And then, interior offensive line, there's obviously some good players there. Kenyon Green is someone who's fallen in a ton of mocks. Where's Zion Johnson going to go? That's a question mark. He could be right around that 25 range where the Bills find themselves. And, of course, it's a good cornerback class. So that's where push comes to shove, BPA, you just take the best corner who's on the board. Kyer Elam, Trent McDuffie, Kyler Gordon, whoever you like the most. At that spot, that's who you pull the trigger on there at the back end of round 1. So it's a spot where you are thinking about your needs, but best player available between those 3 position groups, you're in a pretty good spot in the draft to try to address one of those 3 areas. Day 2, basically get what you didn't, right? Rounds 2 and 3, let's say you got a nose, and round 1, go ahead and try to find a potential starting left guard in the second, and maybe a cornerback option or 2 once you get to rounds 3 and 4. Obviously round 4 not on day 2, but you catch my drift. That, or if you do go corner round 1, then yeah, I think then you're in a really nice spot to be able to go IOL, IDL in rounds 2 and 3 and just kind of keep adding to the trenches and keep that similar approach that the Bills have had over the last couple of offseasons, adding a lot to the defensive line in specific. And then day 3, just BPA. I mean, you got a player you like, go take a shot. Again, it's about incremental upgrade, so I'd like to see them take a similar approach that I think the Browns did a really nice job at last offseason. Now, Obviously, the Browns season didn't totally pan out like we thought it would, but taking a Mitchell Schwartz in the 6th round, where it's like, yes, I can see what Kevin Stefanski is going to use this guy for. It makes sense for why he's on this roster. Something like that, I think, makes a ton of sense. And maybe it's not a wide receiver, though I do think that adding a wide receiver, Gabe Davis was pre-day 3 taken, but someone in that mold where it's like, hey, this guy might take 2 to 3 years, but we think we can get a diamond in the rough here where it just takes some time and a little bit of work on our coaching staff, give them something to do, right? And try to get them to where 2 to 3 years' time, this is another person who can step in the rotation. Maybe Gabriel Davis gets a big deal and that person replaces Davis. Or maybe Dave starts to show signs of age. You know, who knows what's going to be on the horizon for this team in 3 years. We just don't know those issues yet. But that said, go BPA, right? Like, if you see someone you think, okay, this guy would be an awesome, special teams guy, he could be a great returner, or, this, gadget type of player. If you think you have a role for him, go ahead and let it fly. And if not, BPA. Just take the best player and try to, build a good, solid football team, right? That's the overall goal. Final notes again, this is a serious contender. And that's why, talking day 3, it's hard to discuss day 3 with the Buffalo Bills because there's just not that many players that are going to go around at that point in the draft that are going to make a difference on this football team. It'd be one thing if we're talking about the Houston Texans or someone like that where they have a ton of holes. And hey, maybe you'll get lucky in the 4th round. And I guess you could say the same is true for the Bills. But, it's going to be hard to find a number 1 corner that's better than Tre'Davious White or a wide receiver better than Stephon Diggs. Compare that to the Texans situation where there's a ton of holes and not a whole lot of long-term fixes. You can find somebody who could be a part of that image. Think about the Lions, too. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is a good example to convey what I'm talking about. 4th round pick becomes their best wide receiver. That's just not going to happen for the Bills. So, tangent aside, it's about just adding overall talent and also adding to your culture, right? If you think this guy's going to step into the locker room, be a part and a good addition to what you have working in the locker room, then that's a big part of the process and obviously something I don't have access to because I'm not in the interview process. But that's going to do it for my Buffalo Bills offseason checklist. Tell me what you think down in the comment section. Where can the Buffalo Bills get better as the team through free agency, the draft, or via trade? Love to have some of your thoughts down below. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you're new to the channel and want to see more off-season content coverage, I'll have a new mock draft out for you very soon. Be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teej, and we are signing off.